The stranger on the Canary day began just like any other. Sundar Pichai was walking through the bustling streets of Mumbai, blending in with the morning crowd. He wore a simple gray shirt, light jeans, and sneakers that had seen a few, too. Many miles. No one recognized him, and that was exactly how he liked it. Sometimes, walking unnoticed gave him a chance to see the world, not as the CEO of one of the largest tech companies, but as a quiet observer of real life, raw, messy, and deeply human. The air was thick with a mix of aromas, spicy samosas burning, incense, diesel fumes, and a slight scent of wet earth from the early morning drizzle. Sundar moved past chai stalls and vendors calling out offers. It was a city of stories, some hidden, some screaming in the open, and that morning, one story stopped him in his tracks. On the corner near a fruit stall sat a little boy, no older than 7. His clothes were torn and hanging off his tiny frame. His bare feet were black with grime, and those eyes looked far older than his age. He held a small empty bowl and stared at a banana on the vendor's cart like it was gold. Sundar slowed down, drawn to the boy's quiet desperation. The boy wasn't begging. He wasn't speaking. He was just waiting, silently hoping across from the boy. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. A tall man stepped out wearing a tailored white suit, gold watch glinting under the sunlight, and sunglasses that probably cost more than Sundar's entire outfit. His shoes clicked sharply against the pavement as he strutted toward the fruit stall. Sundar watched closely. 3 bananas. The man barked to the vendor, not even glancing at the boy sitting on the ground. The vendor handed them over. The boy's eyes lit up just for a second, hopeful, but the man caught the look and turned to him with disgust. "Don't stare at me, beggar. Go work for your food." The boy said nothing. He just lowered his head. Sundar felt his chest tighten. Something in that moment pierced through his skin, his success, his accomplishments. He could feel the weight of that boy's silence like thunder in a quiet room. The man peeled one of the bananas, took a single bite, and then tossed the rest into a trash bin just a few feet away. The boy flinched at the sound, but didn't move. He didn't even cry in that. Broke something inside Sundar. He didn't move at first. He just stood there, frozen, overwhelmed by a mix of rage and sorrow. How could someone be so blind, so cruel? He wanted to scream, to confront the man, to shout into the heavens about the injustice. But instead he walked slowly to the trash bin, pulled out the barely eaten banana, and kneeled before the boy. "You hungry?" Sundar asked softly. The boy didn't answer. He just stared up at him, unsure, his eyes darting between the banana and the man in front of him. "Here," Sundar whispered, gently breaking off the bitten part and offering the rest. The boy took it slowly, almost reverently, and bit into it like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. That single act, small, so quiet, set something in motion that Sundar could never have imagined. He sat beside the boy, right there on the street. People walked past, glancing and whispering, but Sundar didn't care. He wanted to know who this boy was, what his name was. "How you got here? What's your name?" Sundar asked. The boy hesitated, chewing slowly. "Rahul." "Where's your family?" "Rahul." The boy's lips trembled. He didn't answer right away. Sundar waited. "They left," Rahul finally said. "Mama said she'd come back. She never did." Sundar's throat tightened. He looked at the boy's thin arms, his sunburned skin, the way his knees were scraped and raw. This wasn't just poverty. It was abandonment, loneliness, hunger not just in the belly, but in the heart. "How long have you been alone?" Sundar asked. Rahul shrugged. "Don't know. Long time." The Mercedes man, finished with his transaction, turned to look at Sundar now. His expression twisted in confusion and mockery. "You feeding that rat?" Sundar stood up slowly, meeting the man's eyes without blinking. "He's not a rat. He's a child." The man laughed. "They're all the same. Dirty, lazy, always begging. Don't waste your time. Maybe if someone had helped you as a child, you wouldn't be the man you are now." Sundar replied quietly. Then turned back to Rahul. The man scoffed and drove off. Sundar didn't chase after him. Instead, he picked up the boy and asked, "Do you want to come with me? Just to get food? And maybe a bath?" Rahul's eyes widened. He didn't speak. He just nodded. That moment became the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could see. They walked slowly to a nearby restaurant. Sundar carried Rahul in his arms, not caring about the stairs. Inside the restaurant, the manager raised an eyebrow at Sundar. "Sir, is everything all right? Is this your ... Friend," Sundar said, firmly. "He's with me." They sat at a quiet table by the window. Sundar ordered 2 full plates of rice, lentils, and bread. Rahul stared at the food like it was a dream. "Eat as much as you want," Sundar smiled. The boy hesitated again. "I can eat it all?" "Yes, and more if you want." Rahul began to eat slowly, then faster. His eyes shone with a mixture of joy and disbelief. Sundar didn't touch his own food. He just watched the way a man watches rain fall on a land that's been dry for too long. When they were done, Sundar asked the waiter for a takeaway meal. "Pack 2 more of these," he said. "And can I use your restroom?" In the restroom, Sundar found a small sink and helped Rahul wash his face and hands. He even gave the boy his own clean handkerchief to wipe dry. Sundar saw his reflection in the mirror and something shifted inside him. This boy, this small, fragile soul, had cracked open a door in his heart that he didn't even know was closed. "You ever go to school, Rahul?" The boy shook his head. "Do you want to?" Another pause. "I used to," Rahul whispered. "Before Mama left." Sundar felt his chest ache again. He crouched down to meet Rahul's eyes. "What if I told you we can find her?" Rahul blinked. "Really? I can try. But first, you need to be safe and healthy. Can I take you somewhere better than the street?" Rahul hesitated again, then nodded, eyes filling with tears. Outside the restaurant, Sundar called someone on his phone. "Yes, Rayesh," he said. "I need a favor. Find me a children's shelter nearby. Not just any. The best one. Clean, safe. And send a car." When the car arrived, Sundar sat in the back seat with Rahul. The boy rested his head against Sundar's arm and whispered, "Thank you." Sundar gently placed a hand on the boy's head. "You're not alone anymore, Rahul." As they drove through the city, Sundar looked out the window. The same streets now looked different. He saw more children than barefoot, some playing in the dust, some just wandering. He began to wonder, how many Rahuls are out there? How many children waiting for someone to notice? A car stopped in front of a clean, modern building. A woman came out to greet them, warm eyes, soft voice. "Mr. Pichai, welcome. We've prepared a room." Sundar helped Rahul out. The boy clutched his hand tightly. Inside, everything was bright, colorful, and safe. There were other kids, books, toys, bed stocked. The woman knelt before Rahul. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm Mira. You'll stay here with us, and we'll take care of you." Rahul looked at Sundar, uncertain. "I'll come visit," Sundar promised. "I'll check on you every day. And Mira is very kind." Rahul nodded slowly, letting go of Sundar's hand for the first time. As Sundar stepped out of the building, he took a deep breath, but something didn't feel complete. Something inside him whispered this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And whatever had been set into motion that day wasn't over yet. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Rajes. "Sir, we ran that license plate." The man in the white suit. "You're not going to believe this." Sundar frowned and tapped to open the next message. The screen lit up with a photo of the man, and a single line underneath. "CEO of a billion-dollar foundation for children." Sundar stared at the screen, stunned. And just like that, the story twisted. A man who refused to feed a starving child was leading an organization built to protect them. Sundar's hands clenched. There was more to this. Much more. And he was going to uncover it. Asterisk behind the masks under Pichai stood frozen on the quiet sidewalk outside the shelter, staring at the glowing screen of his phone. The picture of the man in the white suit, the same man who had thrown a half-eaten banana into the trash with a sneer, was displayed beside a headline that made Sundar's stomach churn. Vikram Kohli, philanthropist and founder of the Children's Dignity Foundation. It didn't make sense. Sundar read the words again, then glanced back at the building behind him. Children played in the courtyard, laughter echoing faintly, while inside, little Rahul was finally safe and fed. But out there, out in the world, the man responsible for this so-called Children's Dignity Foundation had just humiliated a hungry child in the street. Without a second thought, something wasn't right. Sundar began walking, slowly at first, then with urgency. He didn't know where he was going, only that he couldn't let this go. He reached into his pocket, called Rayesh again, and this time his voice was low, intense, double quotes. I need everything you can find on Vikram Kohli. Not the public stuff, the real story. There was a brief pause on the other end before Rayesh replied, Understood, sir. Give me a few hours. As Sundar ended the call, he remembered something in Rahul's face, quiet and defeated, lighting up with just one piece of banana. He thought about how easily that small moment had happened, how natural it was to help, to care, to offer what little he had. And then he thought of Vikram, the sharp suit, the expensive car, and the cold eyes that saw a child in need as a nuisance. It wasn't just hypocrisy. It was betrayal of the very cause he claimed to lead. Sundar turned into a narrow alley to get out of the sun. He found a bench near an old temple and sat down, thinking hard. His mind was racing, but his heart was even faster. This wasn't the kind of injustice that could be ignored. Not when it came wrapped in the skin of charity. That night, Sundar didn't sleep. He couldn't. He sat at his desk at home, lights dimmed, coffee growing cold beside his untouched laptop. The city outside his window was silent, but inside his thoughts were thundering. He pulled up everything he could find about Vikram Kohli. Dozens of glossy news articles, award ceremonies, glamorous galas with smiling children and perfectly scripted speeches. Yet now, every image seemed false. Artificial. One particular article stood out. Vikram Kohli launches the Future Stars Initiative to sponsor street children. It had quotes from him praising the resilience of poor children, promising to build schools, feed families, and create opportunity. Sundar felt sick reading it. This was the same man who had refused to spare a banana for a starving child. And then something else caught his eye. A small forum thread, hidden on a barely visited website. A user named Asha92 had posted a few lines under a blurry image of a building. I worked at one of Kohli's shelters. Kids went missing. No one believed me. They called it runaways, but it wasn't. Sundar leaned forward. His heart started pounding. He clicked the user profile. No activity in months. He tried messaging, no response. He searched the image. It was low resolution, but he could make out part of a sign, Hope Haven. He copied the text and searched. Again, Hope Haven. A now closed children's shelter on the outskirts of Navi Mumbai. Closed after a fire. No arrests. No investigation. The official report called it an unfortunate electrical failure. But Sundar's gut screamed otherwise. He reached out to Rayesh again. Find out what really happened at a shelter called Hope Haven. I want names of former staff, especially anyone named Asha. Rayesh paused, then said quietly, Sir, are you sure you want to get involved in this? These people, if they're who you think they are, don't play fair. Sundar looked out the window at the sleeping city and whispered, I am already involved. The next morning, Sundar returned. To the shelter? It was early. Birds chirped, and the sun was barely up, casting golden light over the rooftop. He entered quietly and was met by Meera, the woman in charge. You're back early, she said with a gentle smile. I had to check on Rahul, Sundar replied. How is he? He slept with a smile on his face, she said softly. And that's the first time in a long time, according to the night nurse. He kept clutching your handkerchief, wouldn't let it go. Sundar felt a lump rise in his throat. Can I see him? He asked. She nodded and led him to a small dorm room where 4 beds were neatly made. Rahul was still asleep in one of them, a thin blanket pulled to his chin. His chest rose and fell peacefully. Do you think he'll be okay here? Sundar whispered. We'll do our best, Mira said. But kids like him, they carry a lot. Some never let it go. What if there's something bigger happening out there? Sundar said, slowly. Something hidden behind people pretending to care. Mira stiffened slightly. You mean Vikram Kohli? Sundar looked at her sharply. You know him? She hesitated, then nodded. He funds many shelters. He's very powerful. But sometimes things don't add up. I once applied for a grant from his foundation. During the interview, he asked me how I handled children who didn't obey. I told him we use love, counseling, patience. He laughed, said that wasn't efficient. Sundar's jaw clenched. Have you ever worked with any of his shelters directly? No, and now I'm glad. I didn't. Sundar turned back to look at Rahul, peaceful, fragile. He had a sudden vision of dozens of children, like Rahul, unseen, unheard. Something had to be done. By afternoon, Resh had updates. Double quote, sir. I found Aisha, he said over the phone. She's in Pune now. Left everything behind after the fire. No one believed her, but she's willing to talk only to you. Send a car, I'm going now. Pune was 3 hours away, but Sundar didn't notice the time. His mind was on fire. When he arrived at the address, it was a small, modest apartment in an old building. He knocked gently. A woman in her 30s opened the door. Tired eyes, wary expression. But there was strength in her stance. He asked. She nodded. You're Sundar Pichai. Yes, thank you for seeing me. They sat inside a small living room, the fan humming above. She offered him water but didn't waste time. You're here about Hope Haven. Yes, Sundar said. Tell me everything. Asha took a deep breath. I worked there for 2 years, she began. It started good. Clean rooms, happy kids, meals on time. Then things changed. Staff were rotated out quickly. Cameras were installed in the wrong places. Children started disappearing. Sundar leaned in. What do you mean, disappearing? They'd say the child ran away. But it didn't feel right. No police reports. No calls to families. Just gone. Did you tell anyone? I tried. Twice. The second time, my apartment was broken into. Someone left a note. Stay silent. After the fire, I left everything. I didn't want to end up like... She stopped, voice breaking. Sundar sat back. Breath caught in his chest. Why haven't you gone to the press? Because people like Vikram have power. Media loves him. I'm just a woman with no proof. Sundar's mind raced. Thought he wasn't just anybody. And he was going to find the proof. He stood and offered his hand. Would you be willing? To help me stop him. She looked at him for a long time, then nodded. Yes, if you really want to expose him, I'll help. But you need to see something. She walked to a cupboard and pulled out an old phone. I kept one video. I couldn't erase it. It's blurry. But it shows them taking a child out the back door. No staff records. No ID. And the child was never seen again. She handed it over. Sundar watched, eyes narrowing. It was dark, shaky, but real. 2 men in black clothes escorting a small child out of the shelter's back entrance. One of them looked up at the camera and grinned. It was Vikram Kohli. That moment sealed it. Sundar's mission was no longer about just feeding one child. It was about saving them all. And stopping the monster hiding behind the mask of charity. But he had no idea how deep the rot truly went. Asterisk shadows of power. The room was heavy with silence after Sundar watched the video. Every pixel of that grainy footage carved itself into his memory. Vikram Kohli's face, visible for just a flash, had that same smug expression he'd worn when he tossed the banana into the trash. But this wasn't casual cruelty. This was something much darker. A child being taken in the dead of night. No explanation, no records, no trace. Sundar looked up from the screen and met Asha's eyes. She sat on the edge of her seat, tense, her fingers clenched around the empty glass of water she hadn't touched. She'd lived with this secret for years, and now the weight of it was finally being shared. How many children? Sundar asked softly. Asha, single quotes, S voice cracked. I don't know. Maybe 10. Maybe more. They all said the same thing, runaways. But we had good kids there. Shy, scared, quiet kids who just wanted to be safe. They didn't run. They vanished. Sundar stood up and began to pace the small room, his fingers pressed against his lips in deep thought. This wasn't just hypocrisy or failed leadership. This was something criminal, organized, and hidden behind the mask of charity. The worst kind of evil, the kind that smiled for cameras while preying on the most vulnerable. He turned back to her. Asha, do you still have contacts, people from back then? Some, most disappeared. Some were too scared, but one, Rajiv, a cook. He lives in Nagpur now. He knew something too. He left just before I did. Get me his number. Asha hesitated, then scribbled it down. He won't talk easily. He's scared. I understand, Sundar said, carefully folding the paper and slipping it into his wallet. Thank you for trusting me. I'll do everything I can. As he stepped outside, the sun had dipped low in the sky. The light had turned orange, and the air smelled of dust and promise. But inside Sundar, a storm was growing. He got into the car and told the driver, back to Mumbai. That night, Sundar didn't go home. He went straight to his office. The lights were off in most of the building, but he had access. He stepped into the glass-walled space on the top floor and stood for a long time, staring out over the city. It glittered below him, thousands of lights, each one a life, a home, a secret. And somewhere among them, more children, like Rahul. More kids caught in silence and hunger and fear. He sat down at his desk, opened his laptop, and began writing. Drafted a detailed file. Names, dates, screenshots, links, notes from his conversation with Asha. He included everything. He organized it like a report, cross-referenced every article he could find on Vikram's foundation, highlighting inconsistencies in numbers. Promises that were never fulfilled, shelter closures that had been written off as budget cuts. When he finished, it was nearly 4 a.m., but he wasn't tired. He was alive, on fire. He sent the file in encrypted format to a trusted journalist friend in Delhi, someone who had once exposed corruption in a major health scandal. Subject: confidential, urgent investigation required body. You once told me truth should make the powerful tremble. It's time again. Call me tomorrow. Then he closed his laptop and leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Somewhere between anger and heartbreak, he whispered, they're not going to get away with this. By morning, Sundar was at the shelter again. Meer greeted him with tired eyes. You look like you didn't sleep. I didn't. What's going on? He told her everything. Not the sensitive parts, not the video or the investigation, but enough to make her jaw drop. Vikram Kohli, involved in this kind of thing. She whispered, horrified. Not just involved. Orchestrating it, Sundar said. And I need your help. Meera stepped back, unsure. This could be dangerous. I know, but Rahul, he could have been one of those children, and others still could. She closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded slowly. What do you need? Information. If anyone from his foundation contacts you, asks to donate, or inspect the shelter, tell me. And Meera, if you notice any child acting strange, afraid of someone, record it discreetly. We need evidence. She agreed, and just as Sundar turned to leave, a small voice called from behind him, Sir? It was Rahul running down the hallway, barefoot, with a small smile. Sundar crouched to greet him. Good morning, my friend. I drew something for you, Rahul said, proudly holding up a crayon sketch. It was childlike and clumsy, but the picture was clear. Sundar standing beside him, holding his hand with the sun shining above them, Sundar's throat tightened. He took the picture carefully as if it were made of glass. "I'll keep this forever," he said. "You're a very talented artist." Rahul beamed. That afternoon, the journalist called back. Her voice was sharp and alert. "Sundar, this is serious. Your file, I can already see the cracks. The numbers don't line up. The tax filings, the sudden shutdowns, the missing donations. And that video, if we can authenticate it, it could go nuclear." "So what's next?" he asked. "I need more. Someone to speak on record. If Asha comes forward, we can publish." "She will," Sundar said. "But I'm going deeper." He pulled out the number Asha had given him and made the call. Rajiv was reluctant. He answered in a hushed tone, nervous, even afraid. "Why are you asking about this?" He said after Sundar introduced himself. "Because children are in danger." Sundar replied, "And you know something, don't you?" There was silence. Then a long breath. "I saw things deliveries late at night. People bringing kids in and out. Once, I saw a boy try to run. They dragged him back. He was crying. And after that, I never saw him." "Do you have any proof?" Sundar asked. "No, just memories, but I kept a diary. Wrote down everything, names, dates, places. It's buried in my mother's house. Can you get it to me?" "If I do, I can't stay here," Rajiv said. "They'll find me. I'll protect you," Sundar promised. "I'll fly you to Delhi tonight. You'll be safe." A pause. Then Rajiv whispered, "Okay." Within hours, Rajiv was on a flight. Sundar had arranged a quiet hotel and a security detail. He didn't care how much it cost. He was building a case stone by stone, name by name. The next morning, Rajiv handed over a weathered notebook. Its pages filled with handwritten entries, dates, lists, codes. He'd even drawn maps of the shelters. And there, scrawled in capital letters, was a name Sundar hadn't heard before. "The White Gate. What's this?" Sundar asked. "It's a place," Rajiv whispered. "I heard them say it. That's where they took the ones they didn't want in public shelters." "Where is it?" "No one knows. But it's real." Sundar now had the firepower. Asha's testimony, Rajiv's diary, the video. And then the call came. "Sundar," said his journalist friend, breathless, "the story goes live tomorrow morning." "Good," he said, standing at the window. Again, staring down at the city. "Let the world see who he really is." But even as he spoke, his phone buzzed again. A private number. He hesitated. Answered. The voice on the other end was cold. "Stop digging." Sundar's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "Walk away, or there will be consequences." And then the line went dead. Sundar stood still, heart pounding. But instead of fear, he felt something else rise inside him. Determination. Because the moment the powerful tried to silence him was the moment he knew he was getting close, and somewhere behind a white gate, children were still waiting. Asterisk the world wakes up the city, stirred to life beneath the early morning haze. But for Sundar Pichai, dawn didn't bring peace. It brought fire. He sat in the back of a quiet car with darkened windows, his phone gripped tightly in his hand, staring at the front page of one of India's largest news websites. The headline stretched boldly across the screen, and though he'd expected it, the reality of it hit harder than he could have imagined. Child savior or silent predator? Investigation exposes dark truth behind Vikram Kohli's billion-dollar charity empire. Beneath the headline was a screenshot from the video Asha had kept hidden for years. The image was blurry but unmistakable. Vikram Kohli's smirking face, half turned toward a hidden security camera, and beside him, the figure of a small child being led away in the shadows. Sundar scrolled through the article. Asha's testimony was there, powerful and raw. Rajiv's journal entries had been verified and annotated. Inconsistencies in donations, shelter closures, manipulated reports, all laid out like a shattered mirror reflecting a twisted truth. The journalist had done her job well. It wasn't sensationalism. It was factual, deliberate, and devastating. Within hours, the world began to respond. First came the silence. Then the buzz, And then the storm.sundar single quotes S phone began to vibrate nonstop. Calls from unknown numbers. Messages from people thanking him. Pleas for help. Threats. His inbox overflowed. But what caught his eye most was a text from Mira at the shelter. Rahul saw the news. He asked if the bad man would come for him. He's scared. Sundar closed his eyes. For all the exposure, all the fire spreading across the media, the one voice that mattered most was still the smallest. The voice of a child who had once been starving, silent, and unseen. He picked up his phone and dialed Mira. But Rahul on, he said gently. There was a pause. Then the soft voice of the little boy came through the receiver. Sir? Hey. Champ, Sundar said, forcing calm into his voice. You're safe. You hear me? No one is coming for you. I promise. They said he takes children who are alone. Not anymore. People know now, and I'm not going anywhere. Okay. There was a pause. Then Rahul whispered, okay. Sundar hung up, took a deep breath, and turned to face what was coming. By noon, Vikram Kohli's name was everywhere. News anchors debated the scandal on live television. Newspapers ran stories. Talk shows speculated. Protests began outside the gates of some of Vikram's funded institutions. A few brave former staff members stepped forward, confirming suspicious activity. Questions flooded his foundation's social media pages. Demands for accountability were shouted in Parliament. And yet, Vikram stayed silent. No statements. Number? Interviews. No denials. Just silence. Until Sundar received a call from an unknown number. This time, the voice wasn't a threat. It was calm. Rehearsed. Double quotes. Mr. Pichai, Mr. Kohli would like to meet you. Privately. Sundar didn't hesitate. Tell him I'll be there in an hour. The meeting took place in a secluded, high-end hotel suite on the edge of the city. 2 armed guards stood by the entrance, and the curtains were drawn tight. Vikram Kohli sat at a large table, sipping tea, wearing a crisp navy blue suit that seemed designed to reclaim some lost dignity. But his face was pale. He looked thinner than before, and the confident smirk had faded into something harder to read. Sundar, he said, standing and offering his hand. Thank you for coming. Sundar didn't take it. He sat down slowly, eyes locked on the man across from him. Why did you call me? Vikram's lips twitched, trying to smile, failing. You've caused quite a storm. I didn't cause it, Sundar said quietly. You did. Vikram leaned back, sipping his tea again. These things, they're more complicated than you think. Enlighten me. Some children are difficult, Vikram said, his tone turning colder. They don't adapt. They cause trouble. They threaten the funding by making places look unstable. We relocate them. We give them to families who can train them better. Is that so terrible? Sundar stared at him, heart thudding. You're talking about children, like, they're defective machines, he said. Vikram single quotes as voice dropped lower. You think you're helping them by exposing this? Half of them will end up back on the streets now. Shelters will lose support. Donors will pull out. You've doomed them. Sundar stood, his voice shaking, not from fear, but rage. Didn't help them. You used them. And they're not pawns in your game. They're not numbers in your reports. They're children. Vikram's eyes narrowed. You're not as clean as you think, Sundar. I've read your past. Your deals. Your company. I know where your skeletons lie. Then dig them up, Sundar shot back. And while you're at it, pray they don't drown in the flood that's coming for you. He turned to leave. Vikram single quotes. S voice followed him. You'll regret this. Sundar paused at the door and said without turning, no. But you will? Outside, Sundar stood in the open air, letting the wind hit his face. His body shook, not from fear, but from the intensity of what he'd just seen. The calmness with which Vikram had admitted to relocations, the lack of remorse. The rationalization. Evil wasn't always loud. Sometimes it wore a suit and spoke in calm tones. He called Rayesh immediately. I need eyes on Vikram. Now. We need to find the white gate. He mentioned families. That means networks, people, track every shell company he's used. Cross-reference land owned under his name or under his foundation. Dig deep. Rayesh didn't hesitate on it. Meanwhile, the journalist called again. Your article has gone viral, she said. We just hit 5 million reads. It's on BBC, CNN, NDTV, everywhere. But Sundar, we've stirred up a hornet's nest. I know. Someone broke into my office last night. Nothing stolen. Just moved. Like a message. Sundar gripped the phone tighter. You need protection. I already arranged it. But you, be careful. Sundar didn't answer for a long time. Then, finally, he said, we're not stopping. That evening, Sundar returned to the shelter once more. It was quieter than usual. Some parents who had heard about the scandal had pulled their children out of shelters across the city in panic. Donors had paused contributions. Trust had cracked. He found Rahul sitting in the art room, drawing again. Can I sit? Sundar asked. Rahul nodded. What are you drawing? A gate, Rahul said softly. Sundar's chest tightened. What kind of gate? A white one. I remember it from when Mama took me somewhere. Where? A big place. Quiet. No. Colors. No smiles. They said if I was bad, I'd stay there. Mama cried a lot, and she left. And I ran away. Sundar's heart stopped. This wasn't just a word. Scribbled in Rajiv's journal. This was real. Rahul had been there. Can you draw it for me? Rahul nodded and slowly began to sketch. A tall gate. White. No signs. Just lines and walls and fences. Sundar took a photo of it, heart pounding. He now had a witness. And a lead. The next day, Rayesh called. Sir, we found it. Coordinates match land registered under one of Kohli's dummy corporations. It's outside Lonavala, secluded, no official. Buildings listed. No images on satellite view. Heavily wooded. Sundar's voice dropped to a whisper. Is it still active? We don't know. But there are guards, and delivery trucks go there every few days. Sundar stood in silence. The white gate wasn't. Just a memory. It was real. And behind it, something terrible was still happening. Send me the address, Sundar said. You're not going there alone, are you? No, Sundar replied. This time, I'm bringing the world with me. As he stared at the photo Rahul had drawn, the one with no smiles and tall fences, Sundar knew they were nearing the truth. But he also knew something else. V. IKRM had gone silent. And silence before a storm was always the most dangerous kind. Asterisk. Beyond the white Gateli car moved silently along the winding road outside Lonavala, swallowed by trees on either side. Tall deodars reached for the sky, their shadows long and heavy under the moonlight. The forest breathed quietly, like it was holding back a secret too heavy to bear. In the back seat, Sundar Pichai sat tense, eyes locked on the screen of his phone. Watching the image again, Rahul's drawing of the white gate, each line etched with a child's trembling memory. Next to him sat Rayesh, checking coordinates against a secure map. 5 more kilometers, Rayesh whispered. No phone signal ahead. We're on our own, Sundar nodded. They weren't dressed like executives tonight. No suits, no titles. Just 2 men wearing dark jackets and purpose. Earlier that morning, Sundar had quietly assembled a team 3 trusted individuals who had served in intelligence and cybersecurity. People he had worked with during sensitive global crises. No names, no paper trail, only loyalty and the unshakable understanding that what lay beyond the white gate couldn't be handled by press releases or public statements. It needed eyes, proof, and action. They had chosen to come at night. Drones wouldn't help. The area was thick with canopy cover. The property had no official signage, no visible entrance from the road. According to Rayesh's data, the land had been purchased under a shell corporation linked to Vikram's foundation. The purchase was clean on paper. Too clean? They stopped the car on a dirt patch and got out. Silence enveloped them except for the rustle of leaves and the occasional call of a night bird. Sundar's boots crunched softly against gravel as he walked, flashlight off, relying on moonlight to guide his step. The air was damp and heavy, as if the trees themselves knew what stood nearby. After 10 minutes of walking through the woods, Rayesh held up a hand. "We're close," he said. And then they saw tall white bars, almost glowing in the dark. A massive iron gate painted bone white. No cameras, no logos. Just a cold, silent entrance stretching between two concrete walls that vanished into the trees. "It's exactly like Rahul drew it," Sundar whispered. They stayed low, observing. Beyond the gate, they could barely make out dim lights from a distant building, long and narrow, like dorms. They spotted movement, 2 guards, pacing slowly, rifles slung over shoulders. The place wasn't abandoned. "There's a security post to the left," Rayesh pointed. "1 camera. Probably motion-activated floodlights. If we step wrong, we're seen." "We need to know what's inside," Sundar said. He scanned the gate. "Then the wall over there," he pointed to a section where the concrete had cracked. "We climb?" They moved silently, scaling the side and landing inside like ghosts. Adrenaline burned in Sundar's veins. He wasn't used to this. This wasn't boardrooms or interviews. This was something else. But he wasn't afraid, because somewhere inside this hidden compound, there could be children just like Rahul, trapped in silence. They crept behind shrubs, keeping to the shadows. Closer now, they saw the buildings, clearly 4 rectangular blocks. No windows, all painted the same dull beige. The architecture was brutal, cold, not a place of healing. A place of control. They reached the side of one building. Rayesh carefully attached a small thermal scanner to the wall. The screen lit up. "There are people inside," he said. "Lots of them. Small heat signatures. Definitely children." Sundar's chest tightened. They had found it. "Get video," he ordered. "Document everything. Movements, shifts, numbers." As Rayesh filmed, one of the intelligence team members whispered, "Sir." "Over here." They followed him around the back of the building. What they saw made Sundar's breath catch. A truck. Unmarked. Backed up against the loading dock. Its rear doors were open, and 2 men were standing beside it with clipboards. "They're moving someone," Rayesh said. "Get closer." They crept through the underbrush, positioning themselves just meters away. In the dim security lights, they saw 2 children boys, maybe 10 or 11, blindfolded, hands tied, being led into the truck. One child stumbled, falling to the ground. One of the men yanked him up roughly by the arm, barking something under his breath. Sundar's fist clenched. He wanted to run, to shout, to stop it, but Rayesh grabbed his arm. "Not now. We don't have backup. We move now. We lose everything." "But they're not going far. They've done this before. We track, then we strike." It tore Sundar's soul in half to stay silent, to let the truck drive away. But Rayesh was right. They needed to dismantle this from the root, and that meant patience. They filmed everything. Faces, plates, roots, and then they slipped out. Back through the crack in the wall, disappearing into the trees as quietly as they came. Back in the car, no one spoke for a long time. Sundar stared ahead. The image of that boy falling etched into his mind. "We have enough," Rayesh said finally. "This will blow the lid off." "Not yet," Sundar said. "We need to find out where they're taking them." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. They tracked the truck across regions, switching between live feeds and old surveillance footage from highway cams. It stopped in a private warehouse near Pune. The team infiltrated quietly, cameras hidden in bags. They captured everything. Cages, beds with restraints, children. Silent, and a name stenciled on a plaque inside. Behavioral Correction Unit. White Wing. Sundar nearly collapsed when he saw it. It wasn't just a shelter. It was a prison. And Vikram Kohli wasn't just relocating children. He was experimenting on them. They went straight to the journalist. When she saw the footage, her hands trembled. This is no longer a scandal," she whispered. "This is a crime against humanity." The second exposed dropped the next day. The footage, the images, The interviews. People rioted in the streets. Vikrm single quotes S Foundation shut down all communication. His house was stormed by media. A case was opened by the National Child Rights Commission and Sundar. He walked into a courtroom 2 days later and handed over every file to the Chief Justice, personally. No press. No statements. Just quiet justice. That night, back at the shelter, he found Rahul sitting by the window, looking out at the stars. You okay? Sundar asked, sitting beside him. The bad man's gone. Rahul asked. He's not gone yet, Sundar said softly. But he will be. And he'll never hurt anyone again. Rahul leaned his head against Sundar's shoulder. Thank you. He whispered. But Sundar shook his head. No, thank you. You're the reason this all started. Your silence woke me up. Rahul smiled, eyes half closed. Will I ever see Mama again? Sundar didn't answer right away. He just wrapped his arm around the boy and said, We'll find her. I promise. But deep down, he wondered. 3 weeks later, Vikram Kohli was arrested. The footage had become international news. Interpol opened investigations into his global charity partners in Sundar. He returned to his office. But everything was different. He no longer saw graphs and charts. He saw faces. He saw children. And he knew his journey had only just begun. Because for every white gate he tore down, there might be 10 more hidden in shadows. But now, he wasn't afraid to walk into the dark. Asterisk. The promise kept. Weeks after Vikram Kohli's arrest passed in a blur of court hearings, news specials, and relentless public reaction. Sundar Pichai watched it all unfold with a quiet intensity, not seeking the spotlight, not interested in praise. He had walked into the fire not to be seen, but to shine light on those who had been invisible for too long. The world now knew the truth. The white gate had fallen. But for Sundar, the mission wasn't over. He sat in his office one rainy evening, staring at a framed sketch on his desk. Rahul's drawing of the white gate. He had kept it close throughout the entire ordeal. Even now, with global headlines naming him the hero behind the expose, Sundar didn't feel like one. He felt like a man who had simply done what should have been done long ago. On his screen, a map was open marked with dots and red circles. These were other locations that had surfaced in the aftermath. More compounds, secret institutions, tied to similar abuses under different names. The authorities were working fast now, but it felt endless. A soft knock pulled him from his thoughts. It was Mira. He's here, she said gently. Sundar stood and followed her down the hall, through the bright corridors of the shelter. The sound of rain tapped gently on the windows. In a small room at the back, a woman sat holding a child's hand, her face weathered, eyes sunken, but unmistakably filled with love. Rahul's mother. Sundar's breath caught as he watched Rahul look up at her, confusion and wonder dancing together in his wide eyes. They hadn't spoken yet. It was as if both of them were afraid to move, afraid the moment might shatter. Mama? Rahul finally whispered. Her lips trembled. Yes. Baby is me. And in that instant, the space between them disappeared. She pulled him into her arms, clutching him like she would never let go again. Tears spilled down both their cheeks as Sundar watched from the doorway, his heart full, his throat tight. After a few minutes, she looked up and locked eyes with Sundar. You found him, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Sundar nodded. She stood and walked over, holding Rahul's hand tightly. I didn't abandon him, she said softly. I was forced. People came, they took me, told me he would be safe, told me he would go to school, get food. I believed them. Then they locked me in a different place. I escaped. I've been searching ever since. Sundar's eyes filled with quiet rage and understanding all at once. He didn't doubt her. The system had broken more than children. It had broken mothers too. You don't need to explain, he said gently. He never gave up on you. And I never gave up on him, she whispered. That night, Sundar stayed at the shelter. He ate dinner with the children, rice and dal, simple and warm. He listened to their stories, their laughter, their memories. For many of them, the scars ran deep, but they were healing. Slowly, Rahul sat beside him, a plate balanced on his lap. He was glowing in a way Sundar hadn't seen before. Mama's staying here for a few days, Rahul said. Then we'll go home. Not the street, no, our real home. Mira said she'll help. That's good, Sundar smiled. You deserve that. Rahul leaned in closer, his voice dropping. Can I still see you? Sundar paused, deeply moved. You can always see me, Rahul. You're part of my story now. Rahul nodded, thoughtful. And you're in mine? Months passed. Vikram Kohli's trial became one of the most closely watched cases in India's recent history. Dozens of former staff testified. Victims came forward, some now adults, others still children. The evidence was overwhelming. No lawyer could twist it. No donation could erase it. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with no chance of parole. The day the sentence was announced, Sundar didn't celebrate. He sat quietly in his garden, letting the sun warm his face. Justice was done, but the damage, that would take years to heal. Still, there was peace in knowing the cycle was broken. That afternoon, he received a letter. It was handwritten on lined paper. Dear Sundar, I'm in school now. It's not scary like before. They give us lunch and we get to play with real balls and paint. Mama works at the shelter now with Mira. She cooks the food and helps the other kids. Sometimes I still get scared. Sometimes I remember the gate and feel my chest hurt. But Mama hugs me and says, we're safe now. And I think about you. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for not walking past your friend. Rahul Sundar read the letter twice. Then 3 times. He folded it carefully and placed it beside the sketch. Not a day went by that he didn't think of that morning. The banana, the silence, the boy. With 2 old eyes sitting on a street corner while the world walked by. That moment had changed him. Not just what he did, but who he was. He began investing in shelters, not just with money, but with vision. Clean facilities, trauma counselors, education programs. He brought in his engineers to build learning apps for rural schools. He worked with journalists, activists, and tech leaders to create a global database to flag fraudulent charities. He built not just buildings, but bridges. And wherever he went, he told Rahul's story, not as a tale of starness. But as a lesson, because Rahul wasn't weak. Rahul was proof that the smallest voice can shake the tallest tower. Years later, during a global summit on humanitarian tech, Sundar stood on stage as the keynote speaker. He wore a simple shirt. No script. Just truth. And midway through, he paused. One day, he said, I saw a child too small to ask for help. He didn't scream. He didn't beg. He simply looked at a banana like it was the sun. And no one, not a single person, stopped. Except me. But the truth is, it wasn't me who saved him. It was he who saved me. He reminded me what we forget in our pursuit of greatness. That power is not in what we build. It's in who we lift. There was silence. Then applause. Standing ovation. But Sundar didn't look at the audience. He looked down at the front row. Where a teenager now sat, proud and beaming. Rahul. Wearing his first suit, holding his mother's hand, and beside him, the same crumpled sketch folded into the pocket of his shirt. Outside, under the moonlight, after the summit had ended, Sundar and Rahul stood side by side. I still draw, Rahul said, smiling. But now I draw doors, open ones. Sundar laughed softly. That's beautiful. And one day, Rahul said, I'll build a shelter, and I'll name it after you. Sundar knelt and looked him in the eyes. Don't name it after me. He said, name it after the child you once were. Because that child was brave. Rahul's eyes sparkled, and for a long moment, they stood in silence. No need for words, just a shared understanding that from one simple act of kindness, an entire movement had been born, and the world, broken as it was, had found a reason to hope again. Asterisk.